start recording. And there we go. And I'm going to shut up and let our speakers talk.
Thank you, everybody. So I'm very happy to be here with you today. And please give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen presentation. Okay, I see you. I see that you can see it. So my name is Reverend González. I'm an Ishlamaket at Calpuli here in Chicago, which is a mystical study and physical dance group in indigenous people here in Chicago. Um, I'm a pagan priestess and a spiritual and community healer. I'm a writer, podcaster, social justice and religious freedom activist, priestess of the goddess, and minister with Circle Sanctuary. And you can find my information at bluewitch.org. And today I'm here, I'm very, very honored. This is my second time, or is it my third? No, second time, I think, coming to this place. And today we're talking about the origin and traditions of the Day of the Dead. And more importantly than anything is to remind people that this tradition is ancient. Some people believe that is um, probably 2,500 years old. Some people say it's probably 3,000 years old. And it's a celebration of life. Don't let the propaganda fool you. Not too long ago, pardon me, some propaganda came out saying that we worship the dead and that this was a demonic thing and la la la, and that is nothing but lies. People opening their mouth and talking about things that don't understand. Seems to be people's favorite sport as of late. So this is a celebration of life and more than anything, a celebration of love and obviously very colorful. And this is a real photograph of, I keep doing that. This is a real photograph of people at a gravesite in Mexico City on a Day of the Dead. And I think it's beautiful. And who will be afraid of that amount of color and love and music and flowers and fruit and just beautiful things that represent life and love. So Dia de Muertos is a party that celebrates, I can see, okay, honors both the living and the deceased, and it's celebration of life cycles. It's a very unique holiday, endemic to the central region of Mexico, but it extends to all um, Mexico, which is part of North America. And there are some places on Central America, and to my knowledge, even in South America, that celebrate some variation. And well, we are not the only people that celebrate the lovely dead and those who we love and have departed. Um, Asian cultures also are very strong in celebrating that. And I think it's a very healthy way of mourning the dead and a very healthy way to understand that life is a part of the cycle and death is part of the cycle as well. And then that energy never ceases to exist. That energy will just transform. And we truly believe that our relationships don't end, they transform and they become something new and different. In 2008, this tradition was included to the United Nations Oral and Intangible Heritage of Humanity. And when we talk about the origins, this is a very humble altar. This is a very simple altar. And this is a very traditional altar of the Mexica Tenochca people on what is now called Central Mexico. What people wrongly call Aztecs. The Aztecs did not exist. That is a name that the colonizers gave us, or named the name of our people is Mexica Tenochca. And the origin of the holiday is based on two cycles of 20 days that were dedicated to the dead. The first 20-day cycle is a month on the calendar, on one of the many calendars, because there were many calendars, and one of the many calendars had a 20-day cycle, one called Tlaxochimaco and the other one called Xocowetzi. Tlaxochimaco was the birth of the flowers, and Xocowetzi was the falling of the fruit. And the flower and the fruit serve as a metaphor of our life. For our people, flowers are very important because a flower represent um, integration, realization, self-actualization. The flower is the symbol of something that was completed, and they're very precious and they're very valued. And then the fruit obviously comes after the flower. So our people will use the flower and the fruit as metaphors for life, as an allegory for life. And on the first month, which was the birth of the flowers, not only celebrating life and celebrating sensuality and sexuality and fertility and reproduction, but they will also celebrate those who passed away very, very young, 13 years or younger. And they were celebrated as tiny little flowers. And then on the next month, so the next 20-day cycle, you will celebrate the falling of the fruit. And the falling of the fruit is maturity, is coming of age, is having children, is leaving legacy. And it's an analogy about how you are blooming into a beautiful flower before you are 13 years old. And after that, how you're grown into a whole fruit. And with the idea that in order to become a flower, you need the care and you need the sun and you need the earth and you need the wind and you need water. And that flower first is a seed, and the seed dies to become a seedling, and the seedling died to become a plant, and the plant died to become a flower, and the flower died to become a fruit, and then the fruit dies to become a seed. So is that cycle of life, death, and renewal that our people were talking about. And these traditions can be traced, like I say, about a 3,000 to 2,500 to 3,000 years. And this was your basic altar for Day of the Dead: flowers and fruit. That's it. They will put some ceramic figurines that are representative of two deities called two deities that represent death. We're going to talk about them in a minute. Now, these practices, people like to call them ancient practices, as well as, it is romanticized, or indigenuity. It gets romanticized as if we don't exist anymore, as if the indigenous people of Mexico were extinct. We're not extinct. We're right here thriving. 500 years of resistance to colonization. And by the way, happy Indigenous Peoples Day to all those who hold it. So they connect us to the past. And as you can see, this is a beautiful mural that is here in Chicago, in the area of Pilsen, I think. And in the mural, you see the sugar skulls, the very traditional sugar skulls, and the marigold flower, which is one of the key representations of Day of the Dead. This flower that I have told people is like a time machine because it connects us with our people. 3,000 years of tradition on Day of the Dead. Of course, this is now an amalgamation, not just of the past and the present, but of what the Day of the Dead became after the contact with the colonizers, when they brought in their culture, their superstitions, their fear, their illnesses, but also their Catholic traditions. And I'm going to do big air quotes on Catholic because those traditions were heavily infused with pagan influence. So that's when the altars for Day of the Dead became something a little bit different. But more on that in just a minute. This tradition obviously conserves the cultural identity of us Mexicans, or rather Mexicas, right? Mexican people. But what about this tradition and why is it so important that we connect life and death? And we have this image in your screen right now that for the untrained eye is like too busy and a lot of color and a lot of things are happening. So let me explain a little bit. The face that you can see here on the right hand side of your screen with a red beak coming towards the right hand side, there's a hand kind of like doing this gesture. And this is a Hecate Quetzalcoatl. This is a deity that is the deity of life. His beak is that big because he is the breath of life. And he is basically the creator or one of the creators of our humanity on this era. And behind him, or next to him rather, we see a image that doesn't have a face, is more of a skeleton. And then we can see the arms and the legs, and it's nothing but bones. These are their ribs, his ribs. And this deity, this entity is called Mictlantecutli. And he is the Lord of Death, the place of the eternal rest, Mictlan. And what I find very important with this image is that you can see the spine right here, the vertebrae. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little bones of the vertebrae. They are sharing the vertebrae. They are conjoined twins. They are two sides of a whole. That's how important and how understood the aspect of life and death was for our people. They were not separated um, moments, they were together. No moments, but how do you say? I can't remember the word. Anyway, so I was telling you that they will have on the altars, right, flowers, fruit, and images of two deities. And these two deities will be the Lord and the Lady of Mictlan, Mictlantecutli and Mictecacihuatl. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to say the names. I've been practicing for 40 years on how to pronounce those names. So, Mictlantecutli and Mictecacihuatl, the Lord and Lady of Mictlan. And Mictlan is not a place, it's not the hell, it's not the underworld, but they are rather the Lord and Lady that guard the place of eternal rest. So, where is Mictlan? What is Mictlan? When we are alive and our eyes are open and our senses are connected and we can observe each other and hear each other and smell each other and taste each other and touch each other, we are on the realm of Quetzalcoatl, the realm of life. When we go to sleep and slumber and rest and our senses are disconnected, we go to Mictlan. It's a place of resting. And even when we take a nap, even if it is a 10-minute nap, we are visiting Mictlan and we are at the care of Mictlantecutli and Mictecacihuatl. And all of us go back and forth from Mictlan because we need rest every night when we go to sleep. And one of these days, I hope many, many, many years from now, we will go to Mictlan and we will not come back. We will go there and we will rest for a long time. Now, Dayan and the lore of Dayan and the mythology behind it and the 4-year transformation of the soul and all that, I can talk for days about it, and we only have 13 minutes left. So we're going to leave it at that for now. Um, but they represent the cycle of death and birth. And again, we think about death not being finite, but rather another aspect of existence, just like life, right? So colonialism comes, right? Contact is made, unfortunately, in 1492. No, it wasn't Columbus. The one that actually made it to what is now geopolitical Mexico is Hernan Cortez, and he is the one that pillaged, destroyed, and there was not a discovery. It was an invasion, and um, I will never understand how indigenous people of the Americas became migrants, but that's another class. Um, The influence of colonialism was brutal, right? 90% of the indigenous people on the American continent perished to the hands of colonizers and the violence. However, the 10% that survive, they have to adapt and they have to take on the traditions. So now we see a very stylized altar that has the cross, because that is the religions that the religion that the colonizers brought, and not only the religion that they brought, but the religion that condoned slavery. Just so you know, in case you don't know, we have slavery throughout the world because it was approved by Catholic Church. And so we have the cross of the Catholic Church, we have the influence, we have the different level altar, because they were represented now with the influence and the fear and the superstition of the Catholic religion. We're talking about heaven, earth, and hell, and that's why we have three levels. Sometimes there are seven levels on the altar, and people talk about the seven deadly sins and the purgatory, and sometimes the altar will have nine levels because we're talking about the months of gestation of fetus. Um, but we have nevertheless elements. We have air, earth, water, and fire as a influence of Catholic Church, which I continue to tell people that's pagan. Air for purification on the paper, this artistic cut paper that is very traditional of Mexico and is beautiful. We have fire for purification, and fire also to signal and to give light to those the souls of the deceased that come back on those days. We have water for purification because apparently pagans are very obsessed with purifying. And then we have earth as well, represented with all the flowers, with all the fruit, and with all the food. So the tradition talks about the souls of the dead coming and being honored and being present. And what I have found fascinated with people in Mexico, no matter what religion they profess, because not everyone in Mexico is Catholic, right? You have all religions in Mexico, all of them. And the majority of people still believe on Day of the Dead, and they still celebrate Day of the Dead, and they still believe that the souls of the dead come back. Unfortunately, we have an epidemic of radical Christianity also creeping into Mexico, and people are unfortunately being recolonized once again and having their traditions taken away. However, this is a tradition that has survived 500 years of colonization, so I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. But those traditions force the 20-day celebration for Tlazochimaco and the 20-day celebration of Xocohuetzin to be packed up and compacted into 2 days. So now people in Mexico celebrate All Souls Day and All Saints Day. And here's where I like to underline for people, very, very important, especially for those who are practicing pagan. Day of the Dead is not Samhain, and Samhain is not Day of the Dead. So please let's not mash them together because they are not the same. You can very respectfully and with very much love and attention to your loved ones, you can set up an altar, and it can be a separate altar from your Samhain altar, and you can put fruit, and you can put flowers, and you can put a photograph of your loved ones and their favorite dish, their favorite food, because that's the main thing in Mexico is that you put the dish of the loved one. I am all for chicken fingers, French fries, and ranch, please. Um, and a sangria, because if you don't put that on my altar, we're gonna have a problem. No crosses near me, please. But you know, I think these are wonderful traditions that belong to the world, and I always tell people approach them as you will approach your grandmother's journals and diaries and food recipes. They are ancient, they are old, they are beautiful, they are sacred, and if you want to integrate them into your life, you can. There are some other tips that I'm going to tell you before we finish. So I just want to make sure that I'm not missing anything. No, I'm not. Okay. So The syncretism blends all beliefs and new beliefs, right? The fusion created a unique celebration that honors both indigenous and Catholic elements. And we see now this intrinsic figures made out of flowers, right? With the photograph. And here we can see beer and chocolate and fruit and potato chips and bananas and, of course, Coca-Cola, because this person that is being honored here, and the image of Saint Jude. So I'm guessing this person was a devotee of Saint Jude. But this guy sure likes his beer and he likes his Coca-Cola. So that is beautiful, right? That we get to know him. And then this man here obviously was a devotee of the Virgin of Guadalupe, as they have the image here, and you can see the traditional breads and the sugar skulls, and then all the candles and the Catholic cross, right? So it is now, whether we like it or not, an amalgamation of both traditions. And modern day influences keep coming into Mexico, and people in Mexico, every year we panic and think that our tradition is going to be stained with modern situations, and it never happens. It lives through one year, and then the next year we're back to the same. Right now we have this minimalistic altars, all white and gray. What? That is gonna live up like for 5 minutes, I promise you, because it's just not sustainable. Let me run through the next three slides because it's already 7:25. So the modern celebrations of Day of the Dead has become a global celebration. This is Mrs. Jill Biden here on the National Mexican Museum in Chicago, and an altar that was done at the National Museum. And Jill Biden was visiting. I think this has to be 2021 or 2022. And it's a celebration in the whole world, because wherever they are, Mexican, Mexica, indigenous people, we take our celebrations with us and our sacred days, and we bring a splash of color and vibrancy wherever we go, because that is such a part of our culture, because we are obsessed with a lot of things. Traditionally, they are part of our upbringing and our people. They were obsessed with showering and washing and sweat lodges, obsessed with celebrating life and the dead, because we know we're going to die, so we might as well celebrate life. Um, and obsessed with time and calendars and time counting and astronomy and all of that and good health. But this tradition is about life. It's about celebrating life, and it's about living your life every day to the fullest. And to understand that both Ehecatl and Quetzalcoatl are joined by the spine, right? They are two parts of the same system that is life. So cultural resilience, celebrating identity across borders. Andrea, I'm going to go there. If you must integrate and if you must celebrate Day of the Dead, please remember, now more than ever, I am not in need to explain why now more than ever. Consume from indigenous Mexican people. Support street vendors. Support artisan people. Support indigenous teachers and mentors and facilitators. Um, it is time that we stop colonizer ways of extraction without reciprocation. So here we are sharing our traditions of color or culture. Why not buy a toy or buy a figurine or buy something for your altar from the people that the tradition comes from? Learn from the people whom the tradition comes from, and reciprocate in fair trade, paying people and sharing our culture. It is very important that we recognize the cultural resiliency, because this celebration talks about bringing cultures together. Unfortunately, nowadays is the result of both Christianity and indigenous culture, but the roots are indigenous. And if you think about it, on the Catholic cultures that were brought for us, they were indigenous, they were Indo-European, they were pagan traditions. So please, uh, big box stores, and I don't want to say the names, big toy company, big name toy companies, every year come up with some kind of Day of the Dead toy. Those big name toy companies don't need your money. But my friend Juana, my friend Chicuatli, and my friend Micteca, and so many other friends that I have, and I'm sure, I guarantee you, you have local vendors if they haven't been kidnapped yet. You have local to you people that are artisans and you can buy stuff from them. And now more than ever, we need to support those people. Um, this celebration demonstrates cultural resiliences, bringing communities together and remembrance. I guarantee you, I guarantee you that not one Mexican person, Mexican from Mexico specifically, have a Day of the Day celebration and you come around curious looking, and I guarantee you, you're going to get invited because we were not colonized because we were fools. We were colonized because we were very hospitable and we welcomed the foreigners, and that's why we got colonized. But support indigenous people, celebrate with respect. And I want to say thank you to Andrea and thank you to all the people that organized these classes here because y'all have been very respectful and very, very, very supportive of my work. And it's always my pleasure to come and share with you all. And you can continue helping me do stuff like this. So follow my socials. Bluewitch.org is my website. Magia Cerati is my Instagram. And if you scan the QR code, it takes you to my website. You can sign up for the newsletter and find out where all the places that I'm going to be. So just to remind you all, please, please feel free to celebrate. I cannot tell you not to celebrate, but please make sure there is no cultural appropriation. There is reciprocity with indigenous people. There is support to indigenous people. And um, we don't call on these deities. We don't work with these deities because when we celebrate these holidays, they already are here. Last but not least, I'm going to ask you to, if you can, touch your face and touch your cheekbones, go to town, and your mouth, right? Because there it is. There is Mictlantecutli and Mictacasihuat. You feel the bones? You feel the bones on your face? They are. So they are not separated from us. Death don't come for us. Death comes out for from us when we die. Because where are we under the skin if no skulls with never ending smiles? My name is Laura González. Thank you so much for the time and for the invitation, as always. And Andrea,